start this live stream, so I can get us started. Just introduction. Larry Massey with City Planning Commission. Thanks for joining us today for the 2024-2028 Parkways Capital Improvement Plan request. This is, for the most part, the beginning of the capital budgeting process, in which capital projects and city planning meets with all the different departments and agencies that are requesting capital funds over the next 5 years. This process gives the public an opportunity to view what's being requested as well as participate in these meetings if they choose to. I've asked that for this meeting, if Parks and Parkways, you all could present your requests, go over each request briefly. We'll likely have some questions to ask during the presentation, and if anyone from the public shows up, we'll reserve some time for them. And maybe we could go around for introductions. Again, Larry Massey, City Planning Commission.
Vince Smith, Director of Capital Projects.
Ellen Waynes Black, Capital Projects, Project Manager.
Michael here, I'm the Director of Parks and Parkways.
Johnny Stone, Operation Manager for Parks and Parkways.
Haley Bowen, Landscape Architect, Parks and Parkways.
Jerry Harris, PM Supervisor for Capital Projects. Are you ready?
Parks and Parkways 2024 to 2028 capital budget request consists of 7 requests, several of which we've made in the past, and we'll start at the top. Our priority ranking number 1, citywide green space restoration. This is a request for over $3.3 million for citywide green space restoration funds. It's a request to restore the funding from previous years and also to add to the funds that were transferred with that to take into account additional cost increases as well as some additional work. It's a project to focus on ongoing restoration and renovation of our city's green infrastructure. The funding includes a lot of infrastructure that has long been in need of repair: benches, walkways, fencing, drinking fountains, signage, trash receptacles, and lighting, as well as required improvements from damage related to theft, vandalism, age, weather, and other factors. This project also includes upgrades to pathways as well as the ongoing additions to our tree canopy across the city. In last year's allocation, we used a portion of this funding for a very successful citywide tree planting initiative, which came in under budget, and the work was done in-house, and we saw over 1,100 specimen trees planted across the city. So this request is in coordination with that, but includes additional funding for all of the long overdue infrastructure repairs and improvements that we have been wanting to do for years. A number of these projects are the scope has been in the works for quite a while and are ready to go. And I think, Haley, anything you want to add to that in terms of the work itself?
Well, there are some items that we wish to complete to come into compliance with LWCF grant requirements. The Willow Creek Park development specifically completion of that project would open us up to future funding, potential grants, awards from the LWCF. And these are just very much needed projects. There's been a lot of community contact and requests for some of them, and people in the community hoping to see some of these improvements.
And to that last point, council members, community organizations identify areas where there have been, as we mentioned before, long distance benches, trash receptacles, lighting. We said in the past citywide green space enhancement, but it truly is citywide green space restoration. A lot of these capital improvements are long overdue, and we have not had a regular allocation or the ability in our operating budget to make these improvements over time, especially with cost increases, recent inflation. We've taken that into account with this request, and as a result, it's our priority one right now. So we'll do like questions and then keep going, or how do we?
Yeah, I think so. There's some questions in between each request. I do want to ask about your tree canopy restoration. I've seen the results of, I guess, the tree canopy survey that was completed a few years ago, maybe. Is that being updated as you continue to plan across the city?
The reforestation plan that came out in the past year.
I think he's referring to the inventory.
Oh, this, right, the 2019 inventory. So that inventory and also internal guidance within planning and design, our forestry team, we've used that inventory to identify areas across the city where there are gaps in the canopy, and that information coupled with the data from the reforestation plan that uses the different techniques to identify gaps is how we are focusing on areas to replant. Right-of-way plantings across the city, predominantly at neutral ground and parks and playgrounds, and some rights of way between the sidewalk and the curb. But that information from 2019 and then just last year's plan is being used to inform our planting moving forward.
We continue to update the inventory through a interface that we created with IT. And so we have equipped our contractor and also our nonprofit partners with the app so that we can update that inventory from 2019.
That's great.
Yeah,
is that public facing? Is that public facing?
We're working on making it public facing and have actually applied for grant funds to create that platform.
And what we started with our planting partners and also our contractor is just rather than having our team go back and identify the location based on municipal address, as Haley mentioned, they have the ability for it to give coordinates to update the inventory in real time.
What's the, I'm looking at your breakdown, annual cost breakdown. What's happening the first year? We've got $500,000. What's the plan this year?
You want to speak to how the allocation was made for $500,000 for the first year?
So we broke it out considering the bid package and procurement timeline.
Right.
And so we imagined that the first year we would not accomplish much in the ground, and then also if we have to hire any consultants, which
So it's planning and design.
okay. Primarily, yes, planning and design.
There are a handful of projects that involve green space creation. There's a larger project in District E, one in District B, and those will require either planning services that we contract out or do in-house. The smaller checklist items, again, benches, trash receptacles, lighting, can be accomplished relatively quickly in the first year, but some of these larger projects. Any other questions? All right. Johnny's going to speak to our second request, having specialized equipment.
Right, so of course the next 5 years requesting just shy of $2 million for having specialized equipment. So when we talk about this sort of equipment, it's really essential to the work of Parks and Parkways. So much of what we do hinges on how many bucket trucks do we have in the field today, how many open body trucks do we have patrolling medians, parks, picking up trash and debris. There's just so much of, it really can't be overstated how much of what we do is relying not just a regular day-to-day one, but also the response to severe weather events, hurricanes, tornadoes, things of the like. Really, it's just as so much of what we of our operations is tied up into that heavy equipment. So with that as well too. So this heavy equipment as well, not really something that we can pay for out of our operating budget for reasons of it. It takes multiple years, especially now to procure it. It's very expensive. At least $150,000 really for like a truck for what we're talking about. So it's not something we can swing like a $20,000 like riding mower or maybe some smaller trailers out of our operating budget to make do over the years. And as you all know, we haven't had a regular source of capital funding for having specialized equipment over the years. And as a result of that, we're really in a position now where a lot of our equipment is near at the end of its useful life. I got some trucks in the field that are still from the late 90s. So again, just thinking and being proactive, just the sooner that we can get plans for replacements for these vehicles. Our essential duties day to day, our essential duties in response to these storms, and especially concerning climate change. We talk about more intense storms. We talk about more intense one-off rainstorm events that affect trees and all the things of the like. How well we're able to stand up to those challenges is to a large degree going to or will depend on what sort of equipment, how well staffed Parks and Parkways is. We're going to be very much on the front line of that. We talk about maintaining the tree canopy, hand in hand. I would love to see, particularly from my operations point of view, when we give money to do plantings, to restore neutral ground, we give some sort of like budgeting as well for equipment, because everything we restore, every additional tree we plant, that's going to require trimming. That's extra grass to be cut. So just transitioning to the mindset of we want to grow greener. What do we use to maintain green space? This is sort of heavy equipment. So.
Do you have an itemized list of the equipment that corresponds with the funds you're asking for?
We can send you one. I don't have it with me right now, but tomorrow I can send you.
Yeah, I think it would be good to
Yeah.
To have that.
Yeah.
Just to put both question 1 and 2 in perspective, as Johnny mentioned, long overdue in terms of not having a regular source of funding for park infrastructure and heavy equipment needs. With this past year's bond allocation, we were able to put to procure our tree canopy our tree planting project with the citywide green space restoration funds, because they have long been in the works, right? So we were working towards utilizing that full allocation. And with heavy equipment, Johnny's worked diligently to procure and still is in the process of procuring almost the full amount of the allocation of 1.8 million. And so recognizing that this is our second allocation for 2024-2028, that speaks to our great need and the fact that we still have equipment in use long past its lifespan that hasn't been we're not planning to replace with the initial 1.8 million allocation.
If there are no other questions for that one, I'll also be speaking to our request number 3, or department ranking number 3, the Parks and Parkways facility upgrades. So we've requested funding for these upgrades. Really, what they are, I guess, really repairs is more of what you call them. We've requested money for this in the past, and these are just to correct some issues, infrastructure issues that are affecting quality of life for employees around our yard. Continuous or regular problems with the plumbing in one of our administrative buildings. At least in the 2.5 years that I've been here, and it's predated my existence or my time in the department as well too. And it's to the point where on nearly a monthly basis we're having a plumber come out to perform some work. That again, just how often or how quickly they're able to get out and perform that work varies. So oftentimes we'll have a bathroom, entire building's worth of bathrooms out of service for an extended period, or not an extended period, but a couple days before we're able to get a purchase order for a plumber and get them out. And those little things add up, especially when it's happening at least every other month. So fixing that, it's going to take digging up soil and really getting some assistance from someone to help us with together a scope of work on what would need to be done. But again, something that, and hopefully it would be something that would get worse over time. But just something that will eventually at some point would be really great to correct, just so, you know, to the benefit of the employees that work in that building. Second to that, replacing the roof on one of our sheds, the carpenter shed. That's what we kind of refer to. Really, what that is where the greenhouse stores a lot of their materials, equipment, bulk fertilizer, other things, other bulk items that can be stored outdoors. There's holes in that roof right now every time it rains. It's pretty well inundated, and it doesn't drain the best either. Well, there's a drain across the doors or across the floor. Excuse me. So it's something that again is concerning every time we get a hard rain. And last of that, so our security hut there, which houses one of our security employees, we're looking to replace that. There's severe foundational damage to that structure as it is now. We've recently made some repairs to the roof that really needs probably a full-on replacement. But again, this is something that an employee is in 24/7, but as long as our administrative facilities are open, someone is in the building and it's deteriorating to the point where it's like, okay, well, we need to be proactively looking ahead to what we're going to be doing to replace this.
Do you have a breakout of those costs for various?
So with those, I can look to see if we have one. That number was pulled from when one of Danny, from when he was with us. He had previously submitted a request for this, so I really recycled his number for these projects. We definitely want to at least make the ask for this. I can look to see what we have itemized for it.
Okay, and just the other thing,
yeah.
If you pull that number and you didn't inflate it, then if you got this money, you would have to steal money from one of your other projects to fund it.
Just to account for inflation.
Within the requested stuff, and we
so
make arrangements
just
for that.
check with Ellen, let her take a look at the numbers, and I would suggest you right size it. And once again, if you can give us a breakdown, and I'm just trying to think strategically as a way to make sure everybody gets something. If you can send a breakdown, prioritize breakdown. So so if I can't give you if we can't give you everything, maybe we can give you something like you mentioned the roof. That might be the highest priority in this list. So we can get you some money to do. Do you guys do your own maintenance of your facilities?
But I mean, with the roof, I think it's an older roof. And I think there may have been some corrections.
Some of our agencies engage property management and others don't, and you all do not. You're more like the library.
For the most part, we do not engage property management.
That's what you meant, correct? Yes.
And I think in the past we have handled the plumbing issue in-house for relatively small expense. In the last 2.5 years since we've been here, what we found is both the plumbing issue, the roof issue on the forestry building, and also the guard shack. Those, as with any repairs, those issues seem to have compounded. Where in speaking with our staff about the plumbing issues in years past, it was a once-a-year occurrence, and now we're doing it on a quarterly basis. Our hope is that the repair isn't as extensive as it possibly could be. The plumbers that we spoke to have some theories about how the correction could be made, and some of those indicate that it may not be as extensive a problem, and hopefully it isn't. To the extent that we can replace the guard shack with a sturdy and secure ready-made structure, the one that's there is probably from the 70s or 80s and the 60s built. Probably overbuilt.
Could you speak to and I'm not doubting this, but could you speak to the need for a guard shack at your facility? And in a time where people are dispensing with receptionists and such, can you speak speak to why at your campus it plays a big role?
Sure. The staff of over 130. We have, in addition to Parkways staff, leaders of our campus, we have one of the city's scouts. We have regular traffic in and out from other agencies. We have a significant amount of specialized equipment that is housed there, and the location of the guard shack is, strategically placed to where they can monitor who's in and out. And the guard, Johnny, if you want to speak to anything else, I mean, the positioning of the guard shack is really ideal to monitor the in and out activity.
Yeah.
Not only Parkways employees, but other city staff members as well.
Yeah, I think it's similar to how we have security guards here in City Hall, just to deal with any issues. Anytime that you've got a large number of people coming in and out, a large number of people getting picked up in the afternoons, dropped off in the morning, we have had security issues where they've had to respond for people getting maced in the parking lot. People, fights potentially almost breaking out the parking lot. Citizens coming to visit, it's an open campus. Irate citizens sometimes, so there is a concern for, employee safety with that those security guards play an essential role.
And also what we've seen in the last 2 years, hopefully this won't be utilized again, but the rear section of our Parkways campus was utilized by sanitation as a debris management site. So during those 6 months after Ida, I would say that the amount of traffic tripled in terms of in and out of mostly non-city employees, just contractors dealing with the cleanup of those items. So it's a Parkways, it's a city facility that houses Parkways staff and equipment, but it's used for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, I think for the most part, a lot of other city agencies that don't visit you don't understand how it works, and that it's a campus with the physical assets as well as the personnel assets. Yeah. And it's one of, if not the only, might be the only location we have that has a guard shack or guard hut. Yeah. And I just wanted to put it out there as to why that's important.
And it's served, I think, to the city's benefit in terms of security. It's for all intents and purposes a satellite facility managed by Parkways for the city.
So I guess hand it back to Haley for Armstrong, number 4 on the department ranking.
So our fourth request is for the Louis Armstrong Park renovations. We hope to upgrade and renovate the park and bring it some ADA accessibility improvements. The proposed scope of repair includes lighting repair, some of it from Ida, some of it just from time, electrical wiring, including timers, removal of extraneous fittings and deteriorated paint on some of the furnishings, particularly the lights. We are asking to replace the in-ground uplighting in the sculpture walk and make some repairs to the existing statues, particularly the Henriette DeLille. We are also looking at furnishings, replacement of missing benches, fence repairs. We have a couple of gates that need some cleaning and painting and repairs in order to function correctly. The St. Peter service entrance. And we also hope to bring the bridge in repairs and also ADA accessibility around the auto bridge, additional trash receptacles, repairs to the lagoon fountains to aerate the fountain and improve the water quality there, and also improvements to the lagoon path, paving to ensure ADA compliance, some planting and tree replacements, and some wildlife exits, ramps from the lagoon.
Talk to us about your breakout of the funds.
So this again took into account the first year would be developing the plans and the bid procurement package. Some of it would have to be completed outside of Parkways using a consultant. For example, the lagoon fountain repairs and some of the lighting. The majority of it we would complete in-house, but we wanted to take into account that time spent developing the bid package, procuring, and then give ourselves enough time the following 2 years to ensure that we get everything done.
The Armstrong Park repairs and upgrades are similar in many ways to the citywide green space restoration. This request has been made in the past, and as we mentioned with the citywide green space restoration, the initial year ask is for minor improvements and upgrades that can be done without the need for internal or third-party design. What's also interesting to consider with Armstrong Park repairs is that we as a department recognize that the long-term future and possible redevelopment of Armstrong Park is in discussion. That being said, any future redevelopment or master plan, as we all know, is years away. The current state of Armstrong Park is that it is exceptionally maintained. The grounds crew that is there does an incredible job of maintaining the space and the sizable amount of infrastructure that is in that park. That being said, while the long-term plan for the park may result in some or most of this infrastructure changing, to put $500,000 towards immediate improvements similar to our citywide green space restoration is absolutely vital towards bench repair, pathway and lighting repair to a park that is the centerpiece of the city. Residents and visitors are, visit the park regularly, and while it is in good condition, there are lighting in particular, improvements and fountains that can be made with an initial ask of the first year, $500,000, that can transform the park. So even if subsequent years, although that's a part of our ask, those improvements and changes don't come to the park, there are a number of lower value improvements that can transform the space.
Just a question about the jazz park within the grounds. If there are any plans, or if that is even within your.
It's not within our jurisdiction. Sorry, it's not within our jurisdiction. It's being managed by property management. We've worked with them closely to assist to the extent that we can to ensure that those buildings are secured and possibly restored, but not directly. So, and again, when we talk about Armstrong, it's Armstrong Park and Congo Square, and some of the larger infrastructure pieces of the park. We have attempted in the past to restore, the water component of Congo Square, but at this point we're looking at basic improvements initially, just to restore the park to its close to fully functioning capability.
Especially in light of events at Haley Jackson in the evening and the need for accessibility and safety.
Go to department ranking number 5. I'll be speaking to that one. $600,000 for a Porsche building repair shop renovation. We refer to this building on our campus as the mule shed because that was literally.
We do that. Are we going on the department ranking?
I was going to department ranking. Yeah.
Okay. I got you.
So that was the facility or the building was literally the building in which mules were housed when mules were used to maintain medians and other green space in the city. So we were previously given funding to begin the renovation process or the restoration process really of this building. Took on severe damage during Hurricane Katrina, before which it was where basically housed our forestry team. They've since relocated to a different building. Again, we were given funding to restore this building to an equipment, or excuse me, not equipment, to a mechanic shed. We currently have one facility on the West Bank that houses one full-time mechanic and a part-time mechanic. As you can, if any of you guys commute, or across the bridge, across the river every day, that the distance between Gentilly and Algiers that can add up, particularly around peak traffic times. So the intention was to redevelop that facility into a mechanic shed that would house our mechanics, that would help us keep up with the preventative maintenance and perform repairs on our riding mowers, on our trailers that we use to transport those riding mowers, on the small engine equipment, the push lawn mowers, the weed eaters, the blowers, and all of that. Just having somebody on site there would enable us to really just stick strongly to the preventive maintenance schedules that's required to maintain this equipment. Not to say that we're not doing that now, but it's drawn out, the transport of those things. And having it on site is just gonna, anytime you have more people together, you can improve that communication and things can get done quicker. So just decreasing, really what this does is decrease the amount of downtime of equipment, which, less downtime, the more time that equipment is out in the field, cutting grass, trimming trees, doing whatever it is. So just redeveloping that space into something very useful, and it's plenty of room for mechanics, or for the current level of mechanics that we have now. And the dollar amount there, Ellen was helping put together that the specific amount request. So that has been updated. And again, so I believe we were funded through previously, or as of now, we're moving forward with the design. And is there another stage or a phase that we're going into? Forgive me, I'm not too familiar with the specific terms of the.
There was an initial allocation that covered, I believe, design and construction, and then it's shifted.
Did we pull that money
Yeah.
away?
And so what this represents is an adjusted number. Vince, we went into things knowing that it was probably inadequate, what had been previously approved given the acceleration and inflation. So this represents a more accurate estimate of construction at this point in time. If the information's still coming in.
Thank you.
So would this be in addition to your West Bank facility, or would this take place out of that?
It would it wouldn't be. We'd still keep that open because having a presence on the West Bank for day to day is needed or is very helpful for operations. So you don't have crews going across the bridge every day. But I would really, the mechanical function of the department would be transferred to Gentilly because that's just where most of our people are. We have 2 crews on a daily basis, that are housed in that building or operating out of that building. Everybody else, Gentilly campus. So they would be transitioned, or that function of the department will be transitioned to Gentilly.
So that current facility would, I guess, have a different use.
So it's still it's necessary in that we store equipment and other things inside of that facility. We would be doing less with that facility, but it would still be needed. There wouldn't be plans, I guess, to take it down or anything like that. That's not something we've discussed.
It's the mechanics of the repair
Yeah,
that you look to relocate and consolidate with your other campus.
Yes.
And it would return the original function of the mechanics working to part of Gentilly campus. In a different era, the facility on the West Bank was before EMP centralized. We had our equipment maintenance division at Parkways in Gentilly. There was a satellite campus in EMP that Johnny's speaking to, but we would bring that under one in Gentilly, and Algiers
figure out what the appropriate location should be. But I need you to add a sentence just saying that, you know, the project was previously funded and,
I'll work that out.
yeah, you know, funding
Just a
was,
continuation.
was moved in the reallocation, effort.
Sure.
Is that a no?
And Vince, where does that go? I'm sorry, the sheet is missing from here,
Oh.
but,
You know, put it in, put it in the request, and I'm trying to, that's what I'm saying, I'm trying to figure out the best place to put it, maybe in the, this funded current status. Proposed funding source, I would say you would put it in the proposed funding source, just put
Okay.
it in.
Vince, can we put a similar note on the citywide?
Any play, if we took
There's an
money
association.
from you, put that in.
How do we do that with heavy equipment where we're basically just an
Just put
extension
it,
of it?
same location, proposed funding source.
It had been funded, our need is just greater than what the initial allocation was. It's a little different, but.
I'll give you an altered version of it, because we are dealing with that on almost every project. So,
And ours may not necessarily, well, it's probably partially related to inflation, but it's partially related to need. So that would be one, green space restoration, heavy equipment.
Yeah, if we
And
move
the
money from you,
fuel shed.
make a note, in the submission. And Ellen, do me a favor, you come up with the language, let me take a look at it.
sure.
Alright, so our last two submissions are Rectal Park and the Galvez Corridor Streetscape, which Haley will speak to.
The Brechtel Park restoration and improvements is building upon ongoing efforts of Parkways to not only fully renovate Brechtel Park and improve it, but also to unify Brechtel Park with the former Brechtel Golf Course. And the scope of work is broken into 3 phases. The first phase is to revise the overall master plan for both sides and complete the necessary construction package and documentation for the infrastructure improvements. And the second phase would be focused on removing and eradicating the invasive exotic species that we have that are currently overtaking much of the forest there. At some point, some parts of the canopy opened up in prior tropical weather events and unfortunately opened up an opportunity for the invasive cat's claw vine to enter into the park, and it's been a very significant problem in smothering the canopy there. So we want to find a way to address that and also address ADA compliance, specifically to the existing restroom buildings, but also to the bridges. We hope to repair the perimeter fence, which at this point definitely has areas that are not completely secure. We hope to expand pedestrian and bicycle connections within the park and repave the roadway that runs through the park. And then in the third phase, we hope to focus on restoration of the former golf course lagoons to function as storage and treatment for stormwater, and also to expand the overall access between the 2 sides of the park, both for pedestrians mainly, but potentially for an auto bridge across the Algiers Outfall Canal, and installing on the other side the uniform park signage and security cameras and other upgrades such as LED light upgrades and things like that.
Kimberly, do you know when the master plan was completed?
The prior one, the Dana Brown one, that was probably sometime in the 2010 kind of time frame, 2010, 2012. I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but it was probably at least 10 years ago.
And that was just for the park, right?
That was only for the park side. It did not address the golf course, and it was not a construction plan. It was a larger visioning plan, an eco plan.
And so there are similarities between Brechtel and Armstrong in terms of how our allocation, or rather our request is made over the subsequent years, recognizing that there are basic improvements to Brechtel that can be made now. Similar to Armstrong, future redevelopment through a master plan or vision plan is being considered, which requires a much larger infusion of capital dollars. But in the interim, basic capital improvements, roadway, benches, and lighting can be made. And I think the one difference between Armstrong and Brechtel, and I know there are many, is that this also involves the incorporation of a long, out of service 100-acre tract of land. And so the request is much larger, but the pathway forward is really dependent on a much larger master plan that needs to be put in place. And so the initial request for just over $700,000 would just be for immediate capital improvements. Any other questions about Brechtel? Okay. And lastly, the Galvez corridor.
Galvez Corridor Streetscape. We hope to form a connection between the Lafitte Greenway and the Poydras Corridor District across the biomedical corridor. So we are proposing the design and construction of a pathway to connect to the existing pathway within the biomedical portion of the Galvez neutral ground and connecting directly to the Lafitte Greenway. This would also involve potential expansion of the Poydras Street sculpture exhibition, and in order to complete the work, we would need to secure design, surveying services, and most likely we would need to do demolition of the degraded path. We would need to install ADA compliant pathway connections, neutral ground improvements such as turf reconditioning, tree planting infills, and as I noted, future locations for sculpture exhibits.
So the portion of the neutral ground that was improved between hospitals, was that funded by the hospitals, or was that a city project?
I believe
We
that
maintain
there was
it, but I'm not sure.
I think it was a mix of federal funds.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Because
Exactly.
LSU just built a new dorm for the medical students right there at Galvez and Poydras. So I'm sure that they would probably be very interested in spending some money.
Even though this is, last on our priority list, it's unique in its proximity to, as you mentioned, our other projects and other partners, the biomedical district, the hospitals. As Haley mentioned, would give us an opportunity to connect that improved neutral ground to the Greenway, which is managed by the Greenway and Nord. We've partnered with them on certain aspects of improving the to improve connectivity between the hospital district, Wolfie Greenway. We've also been working with the Flood Protection Authority East, which has a connection, a management component to the section of Bayou St. John between Beat Street and Esselnay. And the possibilities to, with Galvez and that portion of Bayou St. John, to improve connectivity, again, between the Greenway, Hospital District, Bayou St. John, City Park. It really presents an incredible opportunity to connect both pedestrian and bicycle pathways between what essentially is the center of the city. So, we have a list of priorities. This one, while not high on our priority list, really does speak to much of what we talked about with our park partners over the course of the last 6 months with the Parks and Recreation Master Plan and just improvements to green space that are not singular, but really connect other green spaces to one another. And on that note, just to speak to our overall capital request, it's a bit premature for me to speak about some of the recommendations that we anticipate will come out of the citywide Parks and Recreation Master Plan in the coming months. But there will be Parks and Parkways or others, and ratings of those facilities in terms of the infrastructure that they presently have and the improvements that need to be made. Undoubtedly a request for a sizable increase in capital investment in these spaces. And so it really is a unique opportunity for us with this master plan and the vision plan and the recommendations that come out of it, to stress the importance of capital improvements and the great need of capital improvements in our park system and our green spaces.
Now, is this the same, strategy in terms of planning and design?
And Galvez, we're only talking a couple blocks.
Well, we would be filling the gap between Lafitte and Canal, or Tulane, and then we would be filling the gap between, Lafitte and,
Between Lafitte and Canal.
Canal, and then the other gap between. Which I guess is by the new dorms.
Would there be any opportunities, as I'm looking at Galvez, are you thinking about putting in any kind of stormwater management structures, maybe we could pursue some, resilience fund?
We of course would be interested in seeing how we might be able to incorporate that. Certainly the plantings, trees.
Yeah.
I think it would be, there is the underlying canal, which, sets the conditions for what we can do. But certainly, tree planting, there might be opportunities to do some bioswales.
That and change the types of plant material.
Mm-hmm.
That might,
It's
making tweaks to qualify.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's all I've got.
I don't have any questions. Well, thank you. I appreciate you
Thank you, guys.
joining us.